everybody. I haven't seen 50 Shades of Grey. I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey. In fact, all of my knowledge about 50 Shades of Grey comes from secondhand sources. What I do know is that it originally started as Twilight fan fiction, and then swapped out the name of the characters, and somehow it became a huge hit. It's about a bored housewife type who is introduced to the world of BDSM through a charismatic individual, and that it swept the houses of America. And everywhere, housewives started reading about, a little bit of light bondage to enhance the love life. And they all apparently really enjoyed it. And then they made a movie. That's about the extent of my knowledge. We are not here today to do a review of 50 Shades of Grey. We're here today to do a review of the knockoff movie of 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, because that happened. This is Bound. We open with Cordelia Chase being very bored by sex. This is actually some pretty clever foreshadowing, because you see that look of silent suffering on her face is shared by the faces of everybody who tried to watch this movie. Now, the movie has exactly two storylines. One is about Cordelia's sex life, and I think that's the one that anybody who actually watched this movie watched it for. The other plot is about Cordelia's real estate company. Well, it's actually her dad's, but she has recently talked her dad into letting her play with the big boys. Unfortunately, the company is going under, and they're probably going to have to sell it. But Cordelia's got a plan that'll save everybody's job. But nobody really takes her seriously, so she's really got her work cut out for her to save this company, save the jobs, and save the family's reputation. So that's plot B. We're not given a lot of backstory about Cordy. We know she has a teenage daughter, but there's no mention of who the father is. Was there a marriage? Was there a divorce? Where did she get the money to live in a mansion? Is that from the divorce, or is her daddy rich and gave her the money? What we do learn about her very early on is that she'd rather get drunk than prepare dinner for her daughter when her daughter comes home from soccer practice. So obviously she's a role model for us to look up to. Now she's forced to take her daughter out to dinner, and while her daughter's yakking on and on about unimportant stuff like where she wants to go to college because it's coming up soon, Cordy spends all of her time making goo-goo eyes at some guy at the bar. So, we're 6 minutes into this movie, and we've learned that she can't do her job, she can't pay attention to her daughter, or even feed her. I am so glad that this is our main character. After dropping her daughter off at home, Cordy goes back to the bar because she accidentally forgot to pay for dinner. Seriously? You can't remember to feed your kid. You can't pay attention to her when she's talking about the important decisions that will shape her life. And you can't remember to pay the check? Okay. But at least this gives her an opportunity to hit on Ryan, the character she was making goo-goo eyes at the whole time. And I really feel that this coming exchange really just sums up their entire relationship.
Have a cigarette with me.
I don't smoke.
Yeah, you do.
Seriously, it happens a lot.
I don't drink in the afternoon.
Yeah, you do.
Is that what women really want? Somebody who doesn't listen to their opinions or feelings or desires and instead superimposes their own on them? Because that goes against every romantic comedy I've ever seen. Turns out Cordy doesn't feel really comfortable getting fingered by him, so she goes ahead and gets his number and leaves. Yeah. Because I remember the last time I met a girl at a bar and started trying to finger her right there, she got my number. It totally worked out. Everybody was happy. The next morning, she spends about 2-3 minutes of film time just staring at the sheet of paper with his number on it, presumably thinking about whether or not she wants to call him. Just a couple minutes of footage of her just... it builds the tension nicely. I was on the edge of my seat reaching to turn off the movie. Suddenly, Cordy's got charts and spreadsheets proving that she became good at her job overnight and that her idea is infinitely better. I have no idea how she had the time to organize all of these since she spent her night in the bar getting digitized. She's told by her father how important it is for her to get all the details of her plan together, or else he's going with the one where everybody loses their jobs. So after minutes of struggling to organize company finances, she manages to get a super important meeting with a very hard to get a hold of guy who's going to save the company, and the meeting will occur in just a couple hours of time. That's it. She's done it. Plot B is solved. The company is saved. Now we can just spend the next hour and 10 minutes looking at Cordelia Chase's sex life. But she gets a phone call from Ryan, and so she decides to blow off the company-saving meeting to go hang out with him. She doesn't call to cancel the meeting. No, she just goes to spend some time with a guy who briefly violated her in public in a bar. Woo! Also, this scene has a very bizarre little cameo from Terrell Owens. So, after blowing the meeting that would have saved the company and her job, she decides to take Ryan to her office for some fun. Ryan insists that they go have fun in her daddy's office, and she agrees. So we could just abandon any pretense of her being an actual business professional, right? You guys really don't need a scene-by-scene description of this, do you? Because the next 15-20 minutes or so is Cordy and Ryan making with the sexy times in various locations while like a knockoff Evanescence wails in the background. I mean, I'll give Cordy this. She's 40, but her body's looking pretty good. This 15-20 minutes is probably the selling point of the movie, because it's Cordelia Chase at 40 getting naked. For a while. That's it. Ryan invites himself to a super important business party that her dad is throwing. Her dad's already mad because, she blew off the meeting that would have saved the company. So, of course, she goes along with Ryan's idea to put a remote-controlled vibrator in her underwear. In what world does this seem like a good idea? After a brief encounter in the restroom, she actually runs into the important business guy who she stood up. So there she is with her hair mussed, her lipstick ruined, and actually a slightly different color than when she went into the bathroom, and her underwear buzzing away, trying to save her father's company when Ryan decides he wants to get involved as well.
And you are? None of your business.
And you're here because...
Because it's a free country.
And she doesn't react at all. I seriously don't understand what's going on. No matter how strong the attraction may be to him, nobody would put up with that kind of attitude from somebody they just met when their job is on the line. There's not a woman on the planet who can find that attitude attractive. This attitude of mouthing off in what he knows is very important and could lose her job. Watching her try to perform some business meeting stuff while her underwear is buzzing isn't really sexy. It's just uncomfortable. For some reason, Courtney decides she wants to learn more about the BDSM lifestyle because she just can't get enough of this exciting young man who's actively trying to ruin her life and career. Her father chews her out for all of her recent behavior, including spending time with Ryan, who we learn is a drug-dealing car thief. And usually in these movies with the daddy's girl and the overbearing father who runs the company, the dad is the bad guy. But honestly, he's the only character who's acting even remotely like a human being would. He is well within his rights to act like this because her behavior is beyond belief. I mean, I get enjoying good sex, especially if you're bored with the sex you were getting. I understand that. Good sex is a lot of fun. There is no sex that is worth destroying your career and family for. None. Because even at its best, even with all kinds of accoutrements and fun activities, you're gonna get maybe 20, 30 minutes out of sex? Really? I mean, unless you're going tantric? I want you to imagine, if you can, any experience 20 minutes long that is worth losing your job over and never talking to your family again, provided you like your family. So in the middle of preparing for a meeting to save the company, Cordy takes time out to go to a BDSM club to learn more about the lifestyle and about Ryan. She's warned by the people there that Ryan gets off on ruining people's lives, something we've already seen. And instead of acknowledging that warning, instead of taking that warning to heart, instead of listening to that warning and going, that's in keeping with the behaviors that I've seen him exhibit, she gets very offended by it. She gets indignant. You don't know me. How dare you try to tell me what to do with my life, and how dare you presume to know what Ryan's like? Honey, these are people who know him. And if you have half a brain, you might remember him almost losing your job and the company failing. He's doing everything he can to ruin your life and career, and you're offended by the idea that somebody would tell you that he likes to ruin people's lives and careers. The final straw is when she comes home to find Ryan in bed with her teenage daughter. That's when it finally penetrates her skull that the guy's a douchebag. Not the fact that he forced her to do things she didn't want to do. Not the fact that he was ruining any attempt she made to save her job. Not the fact that in a scene I didn't bother to tell you guys about, she said, "Hey, would it be okay with you if I tried being the dominant person once? Because I think I might enjoy trying that." And he kicked her out. Not the fact that he's going out of his way to absolutely destroy her professional life. None of these things penetrate her skull. And then she walks in to find him with her daughter and is shocked. Shocked, I say, to find out the guy's a jerk. The next morning at work, she is, shockingly, unprepared to convince her father that her idea is the one to save the company. Gee, honey, maybe if you'd spent the night working on your presentation instead of going to the BDSM clubs, you'd have been more prepared. Hey, you know what? Maybe if you'd spent the night at home working instead of going to the BDSM clubs, your douchebag of a boyfriend wouldn't have been able to come into your house and semi-rape your daughter. Hey, you know what? Maybe if you weren't dating the moron in the first place, I wouldn't have to sit here and watch this piece of trash film! Brian shows himself to be the classy individual we really all expected him to be. So it's time for Cordelia to get some revenge. This is going to be fun. I'm sure she's going to do something like dramatic and over the top. She's going to plan and she's going to execute, and he's going to find himself like tied up in this situation with no escape, and he's going to have to face the consequences of his actions. I can't wait to see what kind of revenge plot we're going for. I'm rooting for like a Mad Max style plot where he wakes up and he finds himself chained to something that's about to explode and he has to hack off his own leg in order to escape. That's what I'm rooting for. Nope, she ties him up and whips and beats him for a little bit, and then says she had called the cops about the messages to her daughter. It somehow feels really anticlimactic to me, which is in keeping with the tone of the film. And then she goes on to save the company.
You can get us these properties.
The end. Really, what was the point of this movie? Alright, I get the fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I can understand the fantasy of a woman whose sex life is maybe a little stale, maybe a little, nothing out of the ordinary, ho-hum, meets an exciting guy who teaches her things she's never done before, maybe takes a little bit of control, because, I'm all equal rights, believe me. I've got enough female friends that are more than capable of kicking my ass. Women have every right that man does, but I also can understand that in some women there might be the fantasy of a dominant man who comes in and takes control of the situation, because in that control they don't have to worry about anything, right? Because now he's making all the decisions and they can just be. And I think you can swap genders on that and it's still an acceptable fantasy. Like, I get the fantasy. However, there is a little bit of a difference between having somebody who's controlling in the bedroom and exposing you to new things, and somebody who is actively trying to destroy your professional and personal life. There is a vast difference between the two. At no point in this movie do any of the main characters act like human beings. None of them have human reactions to the complete and utter nonsense that is going on. The dialogue is poorly delivered. The pacing of this film is painful. The music is... it wavers, okay? I'll give it this. The quality of the music does waver. I mean, it goes from god-awful to complete atrocity. So there's some range there. It's a nice dynamic range. You know, if you want to see this fantasy, this concept, this idea done correctly, go watch Secretary with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal, all right? That's where you get to see this scenario, except done with actors who are acting like human beings. The only reason for anybody to have to watch this film is if they have a prescription from their doctor that says if they don't see Cordelia Chase's breasts, they will die. These are the only two things this movie has going for it. And I'm sorry, Miss Chase, but your breasts, wonderful as they are simply not enough to support an entire 90-minute film. And these are still the wrong posters.
Hi, I'm Luke Bryan, two-time CMA Entertainer of the Year. If I ever learn how to read, I'm going to read The Great Platypus Caper by Jeff Hillary because I believe in supporting fine literature. I'm Luke Bryan. Hi.
Takes time out to go to a BDSM club and try to learn more about the